came in.
Okay.
Apparently, he came for his SciWest program. SciWest, student industrial scheme,
Training.
training
Yeah.
scheme, right? And when he work education scheme, or yeah, experience scheme, yeah. So when he came in, I assume this should be a 300 level student, and I tried to have a conversation with him in English.
And you're disappointed.
Trust me, he was struggling to understand me until I changed to Hausa, right? And this person, presumably, has passed through a process, and that's how he got to 300.
Maybe the course of study is Hausa language.
He studies geology and mining. So tell me how he was being taught this from a Nigerian university. And if this person graduates and get a job, how will he translate or read certain things? So these are the situations we see everywhere. And even in work positions, you see people getting to the highest levels without even pure competence. I know someone who doesn't even know how to put on a computer, but he's in charge of people who apparently will have to operate computers. So how do you
What an irony.
Yeah, but whatever it is he presented
Right.
were certificates, right? And they were real certificates. And that actually made him qualified for the job, basically.
Okay.
And without proper interview, basically because it's a multi-sectoral problem, this lack of integrity, he might just bribe his way through and end up being heard. But I mean, what does it do to our economy? Is what we are presented with what we want of our country? That's a question every Nigerian should ask himself.
All right. From examination malpractice, let us also talk about ghost teachers and absentees.
Oh, yes.
That is quite typical of public schools as we speak. And most often than not, they tell you that it is because they are not well paid. But is that enough justification for a ghost teacher or being absent from your duty post?
Absolutely no. I mean, however you'd want to think, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And that's where maybe out of the conversation, I would like to plead with anybody listening, anybody in position, that certain jobs, certain professions need to be dignified and need to be made attractive and need to be paid.
Just the way politics is.
In fact, just like that. If I mean, a teacher should be paid as much as that because they are the pipeline to any leadership position or wherever it is. So if a teacher is doing right, then obviously you can expect that we'll have better citizens all around us.
Absolutely.
But not to say that you also need to dignify your labor. Not being paid isn't an excuse to be absent, right? Or be a ghost teacher at the end of the day. You're put in that position because you have taken an oath to take that position. And an oath means that regardless of the situation, in spite of whatever condition, you will be there. And this is the future of people's children, the future of a country as a whole being bestowed and entrusted on you.
Right.
What do you do with it? At the end of the day, it's not even about how much you're being paid. How much can you be paid to be commensurate to what you're doing? I like to think that if you're in a profession, unfortunately, this is not the order of the day, right? And that's why we are hammering for systems to be created. But for me, I feel like if you're in a profession, you should be in a profession you have passion for.
Right.
A profession that you love to do. Now, that way, when you're doing what you're doing, it's not even about being paid in the first place. It's about doing what you do because you enjoy it. And then you know the purpose. There's a bigger why lingering all around your head every time you want to drop the ball down.
Right.
So that's the way it is with me. So for everything I find myself, I don't mean to be the cutout example, but it's working for me. And it should be an ethical consideration for everybody else. For everything I find myself doing, I learn to love that thing just in case I do not.
What if we have a system that is not really encouraging?
So now,
I mean, how many Nigerian youth, for example, are willing to be teachers?
So guess at the end of the day, on the long run, right? For me, what I want to do at age 40, if everything works, and that's why I'm planning towards it, is to be a teacher and a farmer. That's my long-term goal.
Are you really sure you want to be a teacher?
Yes, I want to be. And why do I want to be?
I think teachers are the least respected, people. If you look at the category of professions that we have,
I love
in the
to
country.
differ. I love to differ. I'm already doing a lot of teaching
Right.
all around places, even at my office spaces. Just as I mentioned, there was a Cyrus student. I coordinate, I teach them. And then even beyond that, in various MDAs and all of that, I love the recognition and the respect that comes with me being a teacher. Just today, I saw maybe 3 of my former students, and they were really respectful towards me. They were so happy to see me. And on few occasions, they've presented me with gifts.
Okay, so
Not to say-
let me also ask you, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
about you, Sultan. What is the current state of your teachers back then in secondary or even primary school? I'll let you answer that, but let's take
Yeah.
this call.
All right.
Hello and good afternoon to you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your
Good
name and where
afternoon.
you're calling from?
Yeah, my name is Abuchi, calling from Airport Road.
All right, good to have you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I've listened keenly to this, what I just call it, an amazing discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope my voice doesn't hold back, right?
No,
Or
we
should I
can
turn
hear
off my
you.
radio?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, all right. So I sincerely agree with you. Teachers are the most disrespected state of profession we have in Nigeria, but they are the most respected profession in other climates of the world. You understand? I've been a classroom teacher over 20 years. I take phonetics,
Okay.
but I can agree with you that what I've just enjoyed being a teacher is not based on the fact that, because you want to take it from the angle of the society. Once people get to know that you're a teacher, in fact, you're disrespected. More especially ladies, girls, be like, why could I just stoop so low to having to see with a teacher? But I don't teach because of the money, just like as your presenter
Sultan
or
has said.
your
Right.
guest accurately said. I teach because of the passion I have for teaching,
Okay.
not because of the money.
Okay.
So many who go into teaching today because of the money are disappointed because you won't get that reputation from there. No respect, nothing. You are not paid.
All right.
I'm just doing it because of the passion I have and the contribution I want to make for my country. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much. I mean, it's really, really heartwarming to hear from a teacher
Yeah.
firsthand.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's an angle. There's an angle she agrees with, right? And that's to say that there's a reason why you're doing it.
Right.
In fact, last week, UD made reference to the American dream, and right from a young age, you're being taught the American dream. And you know that that won't just come to you because you have people in position, right, to sell and to pursue and to ensure that the American dream is reached.
Right.
You know you also have a responsibility.
Absolutely.
So teaching profession now is somehow akin to volunteerism, unfortunately.
Okay.
But and why do I like to think volunteerism? Volunteerism is basically about you seeing a problem and knowing that you have what it takes to prefer a solution, right, and go with it. I'm not being paid for this,
Okay.
but yeah.
So back to the question I asked you earlier.
Yeah.
What is the current state of your, maybe just one,
Yeah.
Your teacher in primary or secondary school?
Okay, and that's so I could paint 2 pictures.
Okay.
Right? A picture of someone who you see and you pity and isn't doing really well. And that's to say, that's another point of conversation I want us to have. And then graduating to another one who is probably doing really well.
Okay.
And what distinguishes these 2 people is basically because one, decided to be maybe a bit self-reliant. And by self-reliance, what do I mean? They know that this profession does not pay. So why do I keep on lamenting and complaining? I could leverage on the network that this teaching profession have brought to me. Right? One of my students who graduated 10 years ago is a business tycoon, and he's into agro, and agro is something I love. I could go meet him and he could somehow subsidize or fix me in.
Right.
It's an advantage teachers have that they do not even realize that they have. A lot of times they focus on the things that they do not have, and so they are blinded on seeing the things that they have. So the network is there. I mean, if you also push yourself to do other things, it means that you're not dependent on the stipends you're given as a teacher.
All right.
And then,
Okay, I think a summary of that would be the fact that there's really no justification for, absenteeism in the education sector.
There's actually
at the
no
basic, secondary and tertiary, levels of education. So this is like a wake-up call to every teacher out there. Now, let us talk a little bit about, sexual harassment and exploitation. Educators exploiting their positions of power for sexual favors. It somewhat, creates a very hostile learning environment, and it undermines trust. What we've seen across tertiary institutions where lecturers, they want I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Sex for grades. Let me put it that way.
It's actually an aspect that breaks my heart. And in all honesty, not one I enjoy talking about, but one that shouldn't be shied to talk about. Because I mean, if these people, if the perpetrators of these actions aren't called to order, then what's our fate here? But to whoever it is that is listening, to whoever it is that's perpetuating this, it's not even about defining or talking smart here or trying to convince. I mean, just imagine you sending your child to school, and that's the fate that they are met with. This point is just about how bad this particular action is. It's about how horrible it is and how it actually infiltrates and demoralizes and jeopardizes an institution of learning that shouldn't even come close to such an action. It's horrible, it's horrendous, it's unacceptable, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's so complex that it's just horrible. I can't even exploitation at the peak of it. I'm not proud, but I know that I was also basically I experienced that.
You were a victim?
Yes, I was exploited
from a female lecturer.
It's so much, but I mean, I was able to dribble my way around. Thank God it never got bad, but I knew that I had to fight so hard. I had to trudge so hard for a path that a lot of people would have just walked through. I was running times 3. I wasn't working times 3. I was running times 3 to get just my grades. I was fighting for my grade before I could see. And I mean, that's least to say, but it's horrible and nobody should go through that.
Well, we don't have the accurate data, but it's more like 7 out of 10 Nigerian students, have been harassed sexually, right? Not just at the tertiary, level, but maybe secondary as well. It's not like a norm that we are living with, and it's really, really unfortunate, just like you said. And then at the end of the day, when you see girls, when you see young boys tell you that what's the point of going to school when I'm going to be sexually harassed? I can just buy the certificate.
That's the actual point. A lot of them lose motivation to learn. Some of them just get to that point where, because it's a whole cabal now in a lot of universities.
Right.
Once you try to report a lecturer who did that, you'd find out that the lecturer or he's head of department, or he's
who is also
dean,
complicit.
is also exactly. So who are you reporting to? How do you even resolve that? They end up even frustrating you further. So sometimes you just have to succumb to the pressure, because even when you report to maybe your parents, not a lot can be done at the end of the day.
Right.
So you lose motivation, you end up maybe messing yourself up, and it should never be the case. It should never be the case. You
Absolutely.
know what that does? It actually devalues the same process
Okay.
that we've been talking about.
All right. The next point we'd like to talk about, and just before we talk about that, I'd like to hand down the studio lines again: 09087668888 or 09073530044. Don't forget that you can send a voice note or a message to the WhatsApp portal number on 0909705 44 and 50. We are looking at lack of integrity in the education sector and the consequences. All right. Another point I'd like us to talk about, Sultan, is the reinforcement of unethical behavior, where students, exposed to corruption within the education system may want to internalize these practices, carrying them into their future professional and personal lives, and further perpetuating a cycle of dishonesty in the society.
So schools are like cultivation grounds.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah. So in a cultivation field, you will see that almost depending on the fertility of the soil and wherever it is that is found in the soil, you'd see that every plant is growing uniformly.
Right.
When it wants to yield fruits or harvest, you'd see that everything is actually happening almost at the same time.
Right.
Unfortunately, and that goes to show the relatability of the things that are there. What do they call it? Teachers, the lecturers are just like the farmers who plant those seeds. And depending on what you put in to ensure that this happens, then that's what you find as a result. It's like a garbage in, garbage out situation. However, you'd see that there are angles that the farmers couldn't reach with their fertilizers or even their pesticides, and 1, 2, 3 might not be affected like the others. Basically, affecting now might be positive, it might be negative, right? So you find few people going out of these institutions and they are different, but a large majority, because that is what they ever knew, that is what they have that's all what they've been exposed to. They see it, instead of seeing it as weakness, they see it as position of power. They also see it as a medium as to which they can enjoy. It's a privilege they can enjoy. It's an access. So they feel like for them to get this privilege, they need to be feared. They need to put people down. They need to exploit. They need to harass just to get cheap gains because Mr. A and Mr. B got that. It's quite unfortunate, but I mean, we have to sanitize these institutions. That's just the point. Because if we have good farmers sowing the right seed and fertilizing them to grow well, I mean, sooner rather than later, all of these situations would be wiped off.
Well, let me ask you, outside the box now, how often do you visit places of learning to maybe reorient the pupils and the students that we have across the board?
Almost every time. And if you'd permit me to tell you what Generation for Societal Change stands for.
Please do.
This morning I woke up thinking about this conversation and thinking about taking it to schools. Because for a long part of it, we talk about ethics and values, and we list them out, but somehow we are like focused on the students more than.
Can we squeeze in this call?
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm very well, thank you. What's your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Comrade Saris on the line.
All right, from where?
From Sule Jana Just Fight.
All right, please go ahead.
I want to put my out on my own area Suleja here. Because of visual education in this place called Suleja here, the government schools are not helping matter at all. I'm still as the teachers. Because you see, this is almost a 5-6 school in this place. Most of their students, they are not learning, they are playing everywhere around. There's only one school they call a government school, as community secondary school. They call them Django's like that. They call them Django's for planning the knowing in Suleja here. Most of their school, they are playing, their students, they are outside playing. Most of them, they are not even learning anything. They're all the time fighting, and teachers are watching them. I want to beg the government of Suleja or the government of Niger State to please to help us, because of the government school, many of our students are there. And the teachers are not helping. Even some teachers, they are just saying to our students, tell me that, the teacher said that everyone will learn or you know learn, but his money is going on. There is collecting salary, don't concern him. You see, please, I'm begging the government to look and check the school very well proper.
All right.
Whether the teacher is doing well or they are not doing well. Please, thank you.
Thank you very much for that observation, Sultan. It appears you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so maybe in conclusion, because my eyes are on the time, except if you say we can extend.
No.
Okay, so I'll just conclude real
Right.
quickly. Part of the reasons why we're having this conversation is basically to remind people of their responsibility and to basically shine a light in a dark room where a lot of people have ignored for a long time.
Right.
We keep on complaining about our problems and the downsides of things in our nation, forgetting that there are foundations. This is one of the foundations. Through this conversation we have shined a light on.
Right.
And we are just hoping, right? You could see that this volunteerism, that someone somewhere is listening and
Right.
will be touched by this conversation and try to create from his own area, basically jurisdiction, try to ensure that systems are created. For us to have a prosperous nation, we need to identify that we need to have a microclimate and a macroclimate.
Right.
What do I mean, micro? Micro is our own responsibility as citizens in ensuring that this do not exist within such a sector that is really important to us. So it's in a place of the students, it's the place of the teachers, it's in the place of guidance and parents to come together and ensure that that's what PTAs are for. We
Right.
shouldn't go there and be arguing who didn't get Zobo and Puff Puff. We should talk about them holistically.
Right.
And hopefully there's someone within the Secondary Education Board who will also take this message and pursue it keenly.
Absolutely.
I wanted to also mention to you my institution, Generation for Societal Change. We take these messages to even school children, nursery, primary, tertiary, secondary, and we discuss this holistically. We bring it to the radio, and it would interest you to know that we have a CDS.
Okay.
In 5 states for now, we got the approval through collaborations with NOA and NYSC to have it across 774 local governments of the nation. We already have them in Abuja, Lokoja, Lagos, Jos, and we are pushing for Kaduna and Benue.
Okay.
Once that happens, what we do is make these students our these core members our
Your
ambassadors.
right.
We teach them about the ethics and values, ask them to go to the communities and spread this message, and hopefully the multiplication effect take place. Now you've met some of them. One of such people, few of the volunteers that have been in this studio and talking about the ethics and values, not just talking, who have imbibed and become champions and ambassadors,
Right.
have actually gotten into contact with this message through this kind of initiative.
I'd like to add also, Sultan, that you should maybe have Niger State in the pipeline, looking at the observation made from a contributor all the way from Suleja.
Indeed,
in
we are
Niger
trying
State.
so hard. We are trying so hard. However, nobody I don't intend to call the government or anything. These are few individuals
Right.
using their personal funds, coming together because we understand the need to ensure all of this. Funding do not come to this kind of things, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
We are trying our best, and hopefully if we have people on board who are also willing
To partner.
and zealous to partner and push such message, why not? We
Okay.
could take it to wherever it is we have to take it within the country.
Well, all right. It's been a robust conversation, but I must also confess that time is not just enough for us to have these conversations, all right? But the bottom line is there is no society without education as a bedrock. It's very, very important, be it basic, secondary, or even tertiary. It is very, very important for us to get things rightly as far as education is concerned. Sultan, thank you so much
Always a
for
pleasure.
always lending your voice. And just to encourage you also that the Nigerian dream that you are anticipating, we all are anticipating, is very possible. But of course, time will tell. So our
Change
fingers are
begins
crossed.
with you too.
Absolutely. That's just going to be about it for the show National Core Value. You can have a playback on Facebook and YouTube at your leisure, and leave a comment if you have questions bothering your mind. We'll take it upon ourselves to communicate your observations to Sultan, and maybe subsequently we'll have to talk about them. And let me also suggest, Sultan, if it's possible, maybe we can have an outdoor recording, maybe where you visit some of these schools and maybe dialogue and interact with the students directly to know what their challenges are, and if possible have the teachers come on board as well to let us in as well as to what the challenges or the issues are. Well, we just have to leave it here now. Thank you so much for coming.
Always a pleasure.
All right. And the listener on the other side of the radio, thank you so much for listening and also calling in to share your 2 cents. That's what the show is all about. All right. My name is Omoefe Peace Osemere. There's a lot more to come on here. Don't touch the dial.